Have you ever felt a chill crawl up your spine? Not from the cold, but from a memory so sharp it cuts. A memory that whispers, your world can shatter in an instant, and the person you trust most can be the one holding the hammer. I remember that night with a clarity that still makes my breath catch. The rain wasn't just falling. It was a deluge, mirroring the storm inside me. I was barely old enough to understand the world, just a tiny, vulnerable soul cradled in my father's arms. He was a rock, my dad, but even rocks can crumble under relentless pressure. And that night, under the harsh, unforgiving glow of a gas station sign, our rock bottom wasn't just a metaphor. It was a physical place, a place where my mother, the woman who gave me life, chose to drive away, leaving us stranded, alone, and utterly broken. Imagine that moment, the deafening silence after the car sped off, the sudden, terrifying realization that someone you believed in, someone who was supposed to protect you, had simply vanished. What do you do when the very foundation of your existence is ripped away? How do you rebuild when the blueprint for your life is torn to shreds? This isn't just a story about abandonment. It's about the echoes it leaves, the strength it demands, and the shocking truth that sometimes the people who leave you behind are the ones who clear the path for the most extraordinary love you could ever imagine. But first, you have to survive the storm. I was too young to remember the actual moment, the precise second my mother's car tires spun away from that gas station, leaving my father and me in the pouring rain. My earliest memories are fragments, like shards of a broken mirror reflecting a past I only know through stories and the quiet ache in my father's eyes. He told me about it later, when I was old enough to grasp the weight of betrayal, but still too young to fully comprehend the depth of a mother's abandonment. He described the biting November wind, the relentless rain, and the way my tiny 6-month-old body felt in his arms. A fragile, precious burden that suddenly became his entire world. He was just 28, a man trying to make ends meet as an assistant manager at a distribution warehouse, pulling in a modest salary that barely stretched to cover our small apartment in Renton, Washington. My mother, Alara, had always yearned for more, a life she saw flashing across social media screens, a life of effortless glamour and endless attention. She craved the sparkle, the superficial shine, while my father toiled for 60-hour weeks, trying to keep our reality from crumbling. The gas station, a BP off Highway 167, became the infamous landmark of our family's rupture. My father had pulled in to fill up our aging Honda Civic, a car that had seen better days, much like our family unit. Alara had been silent during the drive home from her mother's house, her jaw tight, her gaze glued to her phone, a silent storm brewing beneath the surface. I, in my car seat, had been fussy, a tiny barometer of the tension in the air. My father, exhausted from a double shift, had gone inside for 2 minutes to pay for gas and grab a bottle of water. When he emerged, the Civic was gone. Not misplaced, not stolen by a stranger, but vanished with the woman he had married just 3 years prior, the woman who had promised forever in a rose garden ceremony. The text message that buzzed on his cracked phone screen was short, brutal, and etched into his memory like a scar. I can't do this anymore. She's your problem now. Don't try to find me. Imagine the shock, the cold, paralyzing disbelief. His wife, my mother, had just driven away, leaving him stranded with an infant. He called her 17 times that night, each call swallowed by voicemail, a void that echoed the emptiness in his heart. What he didn't know then, as his world imploded under the fluorescent lights of that gas station, was that Alara had been meticulously planning her escape for months. She had already moved her most cherished belongings to her new boyfriend's lavish apartment in Bellevue, a tech executive named Marcus Thorne. Marcus, 42, divorced, and driving a sleek Tesla, lived in a penthouse overlooking Lake Washington. He had made it unequivocally clear he had no interest in playing stepfather to another man's child, and so, Alara had made her choice, a choice that would forever alter the course of our lives. My father eventually called his older sister, Aunt Clara, who drove out at midnight to rescue them. She helped him file a missing persons report, a futile gesture because Alara wasn't truly missing. She had simply chosen to leave. The police officer, a kind woman with pity in her eyes, advised him to get a lawyer. It was a stark, brutal introduction to the legal labyrinth that awaited him. a world he was utterly unprepared to navigate. The first 6 months after that night were a blur of darkness and desperation for my father. He was a single parent, completely out of his depth, grappling with the monumental task of raising a baby alone. Aunt Clara helped when she could, but she had 2 children of her own, and a full-time job as a dental hygienist. My father had to cut his hours at the warehouse, transforming an already tight budget into an impossible one. His meager savings, a mere $3,200, evaporated within 2 months, swallowed by rent and childcare expenses. He tried to track Alara down, if only to secure child support, but she had vanished without a trace. Her phone number was disconnected, her mother claimed ignorance, a lie my father suspected, and her social media accounts went dark. It was as if she had erased herself from our lives, a ghost haunting the edges of our existence. 4 months later, the divorce papers arrived, delivered by a process server to our small apartment. Alara was filing on grounds of irreconcilable differences, making no claim for custody or visitation, and offering no child support. The papers had been filed through a law firm in Portland, Oregon, suggesting she had left the state entirely. My father, with no other choice, signed them. What else could he do? He was trapped, legally and emotionally, in a nightmare he hadn't created. By the 7th month, an eviction notice landed on our doorstep. My father couldn't keep up with the rent, couldn't work enough hours to cover childcare and living expenses. He made the painful decision to move back into his mother's basement in Tacoma. It felt like a profound failure. At 29 years old, he was divorced, broke, living with his mom, and solely responsible for a baby daughter who deserved so much more than he could provide. He often told me later that the weight of that responsibility, coupled with the crushing sense of personal failure, was almost unbearable. He looked at my innocent face, saw the world of potential, and felt the immense pressure to give me a life that was stable, loving, and secure, despite the chaos that had engulfed us. But what he didn't know then, what no one tells you about hitting rock bottom, is that sometimes it's the only place where you can truly begin to build something real, something unbreakable. My grandmother, Nana Lena, was the quiet force that anchored us during those tumultuous years. A retired high school math teacher, she had raised my father and Aunt Clara alone after my grandfather passed when my dad was just 12. She was a woman forged in resilience, practical, tough, and fiercely protective of her grandchildren. She didn't offer pity or judgment. She simply rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Living rent-free in her cozy basement apartment in Tacoma gave my father the desperately needed breathing room. He could work his warehouse shifts, knowing I was safe and loved with my Nana. He could finally sleep more than 3 hours at a time, a luxury he hadn't known since before my birth. For the first time since that night at the gas station, his mind began to clear, allowing him to think, to plan, to envision a future beyond the immediate struggle. My father had always possessed a natural aptitude for logistics. It was this innate ability to understand systems, workflows, and how to make complex operations run smoothly that had propelled him to assistant manager at the warehouse, despite being younger than most of his colleagues. Now he applied that same strategic thinking, that methodical approach, to the intricate, messy logistics of his own life. It was a revelation, a quiet awakening of purpose. First, he enrolled in online courses for supply chain management. His routine became a relentless cycle of dedication, waking at 5 a.m. to study for 2 hours before I woke up, working his shift, then studying for another hour after putting me to bed. It was exhausting, a grueling schedule that would break most people, but for him, it was infused with a powerful sense of purpose. He completed a certification program designed to take a year in just 6 months, a testament to his unwavering determination. Second, and perhaps most crucially, he documented everything, every fleeting text message from Alara before she vanished, every unanswered call, every ignored email. He meticulously recorded every expense for me, every doctor's appointment, every new outfit, every toy. He even noted every milestone I reached without my mother, my first tooth, my first steps, my first word. He stored it all in a secure cloud folder, organized with the precision of a seasoned archivist. He didn't know if he would ever need it, but an instinct, a deep-seated intuition, told him to keep records, to build an undeniable paper trail of her absence and his unwavering presence. This wasn't about revenge, it was about protection, about building an unassailable fortress around my future. Third, and most profoundly, He poured every ounce of his being into being the father I deserved. He learned to do my hair in perfect pigtails by watching YouTube videos late at night, his large, calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he braided my fine hair. He became a master storyteller, reading picture books with a different voice for every character, transforming our small basement into a vibrant world of imagination. Every Sunday, without fail, he took me to the park, even when he was bone-tired from work, pushing me on the swings until my giggles filled the air. He showed up to every pediatrician appointment with a notebook full of questions, a diligent advocate for my health and well-being. He made sure, every single day, that I knew I was loved completely, unconditionally, and fiercely, and I thrived. I was a happy, curious toddler, calling Nana Lena Nana, and having no memory of the woman who had abandoned me. Sometimes my father would look at my bright smile, my uninhibited laughter, and feel a fierce, protective rage at Alara for walking away from something so precious, so pure. But mostly, he just felt an overwhelming gratitude that he got to be my father, that he was the one chosen to witness my growth, to nurture my spirit. By the time I turned 2, my father had landed a significantly better job as a logistics coordinator for a mid-size manufacturing company in Tacoma. The pay, $62,000 a year, was a substantial jump, a financial breath of fresh air that allowed him to finally start saving money for the first time in years. The weight on his shoulders began to lighten, replaced by a quiet confidence. When I turned 3, my father met Sarah. She was a software developer at a bustling tech company downtown, and their paths crossed at a parent and child music class at the community center. Sarah was there with her nephew, filling in for her sister who was out of town. She made a self-deprecating joke about being completely tone-deaf, and I, a spirited 3-year-old, giggled. My father, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, found himself genuinely smiling. They started talking after class, a casual conversation that blossomed into coffee, then dinner, then regular weekend plans. Sarah met me early on. My father had made it unequivocally clear. He and I were a package deal, an inseparable unit, and Sarah handled it with an ease that amazed him. She didn't try to replace my mother or rush into anything. She simply showed up, consistently, kindly, allowing our relationship to develop naturally, organically. What my father appreciated most about Sarah was her pragmatism, her grounded nature. She was 31, had built a successful career, owned her own condo in University Place, and had zero interest in drama or games. She was clear from the start about what she wanted: a partner who was honest, a relationship built on mutual respect, and eventually, a family of her own. They dated for 18 months before my father proposed. It was nothing extravagant, just the 3 of us at Point Defiance Park, watching the sunset paint the Puget Sound in hues of orange and purple. Sarah said yes before he even finished asking, her eyes shining with a quiet joy. They married in a small, intimate ceremony 6 months later, in August 2023. I, now 4 years old, was their flower girl, scattering rose petals with serious concentration, my small face a picture of focused delight, while guests laughed and snapped pictures. My father's life had transformed so completely that sometimes he could barely recognize the broken man who had stood in that gas station parking lot all those years ago. He had a wife who loved him deeply and treated me as her own daughter, not a stepchild, but a cherished part of her heart. He had a good job with ample room to grow, having recently been promoted to senior logistics manager with a salary of $78,000. He and Sarah had bought a modest house in Spanaway, nothing extravagant, but it was theirs, a sanctuary built on love and hard work. I was enrolled in a wonderful preschool, already reading simple books, my mind blossoming with curiosity. He had built a real life, a beautiful, vibrant existence, from the ashes of his worst moment. He often reflected on this period, marveling at how the universe, in its strange and often cruel way, had orchestrated a path to happiness he never thought possible. But the universe, as he would soon discover, wasn't quite done throwing curveballs his way. There was still a shadow lurking, a past that refused to stay buried, and its return would shake the very foundations of the peace we had so carefully constructed. The peace we had found, that quiet, settled contentment, felt almost too good to be true, and as fate would have it, it was. In October 2024, 5 years after my mother, Alara, had vanished from our lives, she came back. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic reappearance. but a calculated, unsettling re-entry. A private investigator, a man with a stern face and an air of quiet efficiency, found my father through Nana Lena's address. Apparently, Alara had hired someone to track him down, a chilling reminder that even after years of silence, her presence could still cast a long shadow. The PI showed up at my father's workplace on a Wednesday afternoon, a mundane day suddenly charged with an electric tension. He handed my father a business card, its crisp edges feeling like a threat, and informed him that Alara James wanted to arrange a meeting. My father stood there in his office, the card a heavy weight in his hand, feeling a cold rush of adrenaline he hadn't experienced in years. "Why?" he had asked, his voice barely a whisper, the question echoing the turmoil in his mind. The investigator had simply shrugged, a gesture of professional detachment. "Not my business to know. She just asked me to make contact and see if you'd be willing to meet." That night, my father went home and told Sarah everything. They sat at our kitchen table, the heart of our home, while I played with blocks in the living room, oblivious to the storm brewing around me. He showed her the business card, a stark symbol of the past's unwelcome return, with a phone number scrawled on the back. "What do you want to do?" Sarah had asked, her voice calm but laced with concern, her hand gently covering his. "I don't know," my father admitted, his gaze distant. "Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell. She doesn't get to just waltz back into our lives after 5 years, after everything she did." Sarah, with her quiet wisdom, had finished his thought. "But another part of you wants to know why she left." My father had nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the truth. That was exactly it. For 5 long years he had carried the crushing weight of not understanding. Why had Alara abandoned them? What had he done wrong? Had she ever truly loved me, her own daughter? These questions had haunted his sleepless nights, even as he meticulously built our new, beautiful life. "You should meet with her," Sarah had said, her voice firm but compassionate. "Not for her sake, for yours. You deserve answers. You deserve closure." Her words resonated deeply, cutting through the confusion and anger. So, my father had called the number on the card. Alara's voice, when she answered, was exactly as he remembered it. Smooth, confident, with that slight upward inflection at the end of her sentences that made everything sound like a question, even a statement. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Federal Way, a neutral territory on a Saturday afternoon when Sarah could watch me. My father arrived 15 minutes early, ordering a black coffee he didn't drink, the bitter taste a fitting metaphor for the situation. He sat at a corner table, his back to the wall, watching the door with a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. Alara walked in at precisely 2 p.m. She looked different, older of course, they both were, but also worn down in a way that surprised him. Her hair was shorter, her clothes nice, but not as overtly designer as they used to be. And there were faint lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, subtle etchings of time and, perhaps, regret. She spotted him immediately, and walked over with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, a practiced mask. "Alex," she had said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Thank you for meeting me." "Vanessa," my father had replied, his voice level, controlled, betraying none of the turmoil churning within him. He had had 5 years to prepare for this moment in his head, rehearsing countless scenarios, but none of his imagined confrontations quite matched the stark reality of sitting across from the woman who had shattered his world. They sat in an awkward silence for a moment, the air thick with unspoken history, before Alara launched into what sounded like a carefully rehearsed speech. "I know I owe you an explanation," she began, her voice smooth, practiced. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I was in a dark place back then, and I made terrible choices. I was young and stupid, and I thought I wanted something different than what we had. I thought Marcus could give me the life I deserved, and I was wrong." "Where have you been for 5 years?" my father had asked, cutting through her prepared remarks, his voice a sharp blade of truth. Alara faltered, her carefully constructed facade cracking. "Portland, mostly. Things with Marcus didn't work out. He wasn't who I thought he was." My father waited, letting the silence stretch, a tactic he had learned in his logistics career. Sometimes, the best move was to say nothing, to let the other person fill the void, to reveal their true intentions. "I made mistakes," Alara continued, her voice taking on a slightly desperate edge. Huge mistakes. But I've changed, Alex. I've had a lot of time to think about what I threw away. About our daughter. That's when my father's blood had run cold. Her name is Emma, he had said quietly, his voice laced with a dangerous calm. You don't get to call her our daughter when you haven't seen her in 5 years. Ilara's eyes had filled with tears, a performance my father suspected was more for show than genuine remorse. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want to try to make things right. I want to be part of Emma's life again. I want to be her mother. My father felt a white-hot rage rising in his chest, a primal instinct to protect me from this woman, but he kept his voice calm, controlled. Why now? Why after 5 years? Ilara looked down at her coffee cup, avoiding his gaze. Because I realize what I lost. Because I'm in a better place now, and I'm ready to be the mother she deserves. What she hadn't said, but what my father had already guessed, was that things had fallen apart for her. Marcus had probably dumped her. Her dreams of an easy, wealthy life evaporated like mist, and now she was back, hoping to reclaim the family she had thrown away like garbage at a gas station. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that her motives were entirely self-serving, a desperate attempt to salvage her own shattered life. He left that coffee shop meeting without giving Ilara any commitments. He told her he needed time to think, which was partially true. What he really needed was time to consult with the attorney he had already called on his way to the meeting. Because here's what Ilara didn't know, what she couldn't possibly comprehend. My father had spent 5 years preparing for this exact moment, meticulously building a case against her, a fortress of evidence that would protect me from her capricious return. The game, he realized, was far from over, and the next move would be his. My father's meeting with Ilara was merely the opening salvo in a battle he had been quietly preparing for years. He had left the coffee shop with a calm resolve, the initial shock of seeing her replaced by a steely determination. He told her he needed time to think, a polite evasion, because his mind was already racing, not with indecision, but with strategy. The truth was, he had already called his attorney, Patricia Wong, a sharp, no-nonsense woman specializing in family law, even before he walked into that coffee shop. He knew, with an unwavering certainty, that Ilara's sudden reappearance was not a plea for reconciliation, but a calculated attempt to reinsert herself into a life she had willingly abandoned. What Ilara didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined, was the unassailable fortress of truth my father had meticulously constructed over the past 5 years. Every milestone I had reached without her, every expense he had covered alone, every sleepless night he had spent with a sick child while she was out living her best life somewhere. It was all documented. He had records of every single attempt to contact her, every unanswered call, every ignored email. This wasn't just a collection of memories. It was a comprehensive, undeniable ledger of her absence and his unwavering presence. Through his attorney, my father had also discovered something profoundly significant. In Washington state, when a parent abandons their child for an extended period and makes no attempt to maintain a relationship or provide support, they can lose their parental rights. Ilara hadn't just left me, she had legally abandoned me. She had signed divorce papers that explicitly waived all custody and visitation rights. She had never paid a single dime of child support. She had never sent a birthday card or a Christmas present. She had never even bothered to ask how I was doing, if I was alive, if I was happy. For 5 years, Ilara had been a ghost, a phantom mother, and now she wanted to resurrect herself and play the role of a loving parent. Patricia Wong, my father's attorney, had been crystal clear during their consultation. She has virtually no legal standing, Alex, Patricia had explained, her voice steady and professional. She voluntarily terminated her custodial rights in the divorce. She's made no support payments and no contact. You have 5 years of irrefutable evidence showing complete abandonment. If she tries to petition for custody or visitation, we can fight it, and we would likely win. My father, ever cautious, had asked, but can she try? Anyone can petition the court, Patricia had replied. Whether they'll succeed is another matter entirely. My bigger concern is whether you want her to have any access to Emma at all. That's a decision only you can make. My father had wrestled with that decision for days. He talked to Sarah, to Nana Lena, to Aunt Clara. He lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what was truly best for me, his daughter. And he came to a profound, unwavering conclusion. Ilara didn't deserve to be my mother. She had walked away when things got hard, choosing her own comfort and fleeting desires over her child's well-being. She had proven, through 5 years of complete absence, that she wasn't capable of the kind of consistent, unconditional love a child needed. But more than that, my father realized he didn't want me to grow up wondering about my biological mother, building fantasies about who Alara might be. He wanted me to see exactly who she was, to understand the truth, and then to choose for myself. So, my father called Alara back and arranged another meeting. This time, he brought Sarah. Alara looked genuinely surprised when they both walked into the coffee shop, a flicker of shock crossing her face before she quickly masked it with a polite, practiced smile. "This is my wife, Sarah," my father had said, his voice calm, his gaze fixed on Alara's face, watching carefully for her reaction. There it was, a flash of something, jealousy, regret, perhaps a dawning realization of what she had truly lost. He couldn't quite tell, but the impact was undeniable. "It's nice to meet you," Sarah had said smoothly, extending her hand, her voice radiating a quiet confidence. She had worn her favorite blazer, the navy one she wore to important work meetings, and my father knew it was intentional. Sarah wanted Alara to see exactly what my father had built without her, the strength and stability of the family she had so carelessly discarded. They sat down, and my father, without preamble, laid out his terms. "If you want to meet Emma, we can arrange supervised visits," he had said, his voice firm, leaving no room for negotiation. "Short ones at first. We'll explain to her that you're her biological mother, but we'll also be honest about the fact that you've been absent from her life. Whether this relationship continues depends entirely on Emma's comfort level and what my attorney approves." Alara looked like she wanted to argue, to protest, but something in my father's unwavering expression must have warned her not to. "These visits will be on my schedule, at my convenience," he continued, his voice unwavering. "You will not show up unannounced at our home or Emma's school. You will not make promises you can't keep. And if at any point Emma says she doesn't want to see you, that's the end of it. There will be no further contact." "That's not fair," Alara had protested, her voice rising, a hint of her old entitlement surfacing. "She's my daughter, too." "No," my father had said, his voice like steel, cutting through her argument. "She's my daughter. You gave up that right when you left her at a gas station in the rain. This is the only offer you're going to get, Alara. Take it or leave it." What happened next shocked everyone, even my father. Alara, despite the resentment simmering behind her eyes, took the deal. She agreed to the supervised visits, the limited terms, the complete lack of control. My father knew it wasn't genuine acceptance, but a desperate attempt to gain a foothold, to re-enter our lives by any means necessary. They scheduled the first visit for a Saturday morning at a park near our house, a public, controlled environment, with both my father and Sarah present. My father spent the night before trying to figure out how to explain the situation to me. How do you tell a 5-year-old that her mother, who she had never known existed beyond vague explanations about some mommies not being able to stay, was suddenly coming back? It was a delicate, heartbreaking task, one that weighed heavily on his heart, knowing he had to protect my innocence while preparing me for a difficult truth. The evening before the first scheduled visit with Alara, my father and Sarah sat me down in the living room of our modest Spanaway home. I was playing with my favorite stuffed rabbit, a worn pink creature I had named Mr. Hopscotch, completely absorbed in my own world. My father, his voice carefully gentle, began, "Sweetheart, we need to talk to you about something important." I looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes that mirrored his dark hair and serious expression, but held a smile that was entirely my own, bright, uninhibited, and full of innocent joy. "Am I in trouble?" I asked, my small voice tinged with a child's universal fear of reprimand. Sarah laughed softly, a reassuring sound. "No, baby, you're not in trouble. But tomorrow we're going to meet someone special. Someone who was part of your life a long time ago." They explained it as gently as they could, weaving a narrative that was honest but shielded me from the raw pain of the past. They told me that before Sarah, before our house in Spanaway, my father had been married to someone else, that I had been born from that marriage, that my biological mother had made some very hard choices when I was a baby, choices that meant she hadn't been able to be my mommy. But now, she wanted to meet me. I processed this information with the remarkable pragmatism of children, their minds unburdened by adult complexities. "So, I have two mommies like Aiden at school?" I asked, referring to a friend who had two mothers. "Not exactly," Sarah said carefully, her gaze soft. "I'm your mom. The person we're meeting tomorrow, she's your birth mother. But families can look lots of different ways, and what matters is who shows up and loves you." "Will she love me?" I asked, a simple, profound question that tightened my father's chest. "I don't know, sweetheart," he said honestly, his voice thick with emotion. "But I know your mom and I love you more than anything in the world, and nothing that happens tomorrow will ever change that." I seemed satisfied with that answer, my child's mind quickly moving on, and went back to playing with Mr. Hopscotch. But my father saw Sarah wipe tears from her eyes when I wasn't looking, a silent testament to the emotional weight of the moment. Saturday morning arrived with that peculiar Pacific Northwest weather, cold but clear, the kind of day where Mount Rainier stood majestically in the distance. My father drove us to Point Defiance Park, to a playground area he had scouted out earlier that week. He wanted me to have familiar equipment nearby, something to do if the conversation became awkward, a safe haven for my child's energy. Ilara arrived 10 minutes late, driving a Honda CR-V that had clearly seen better days, a far cry from the Tesla she had probably imagined herself driving when she had run off with Marcus. She was dressed carefully, my father noticed. Nice jeans, a cream-colored sweater, her hair styled. She was trying to make a good impression, a calculated effort. I was playing on the swings when Ilara approached. My father pointed her out. "That's her, the woman in the cream sweater," he said, watching my reaction carefully. I looked at Ilara with curious but cautious eyes. Children have an uncanny instinct about people, and I was no exception. "Hi, Emma," Ilara said, kneeling down to my level in a move that seemed practiced, almost theatrical. "It's so nice to finally meet you. I'm Ilara. My daddy says you're my birth mother," I stated matter-of-factly, my voice clear and innocent. "How come I never met you before?" Ilara glanced at my father, clearly unprepared for such a direct, unfiltered question. "Well, sometimes adults make mistakes, and I made some really big mistakes when you were a baby, but I'm here now, and I'd like to get to know you." "Okay," I said with a shrug, my attention already drifting. "Do you want to push me on the swings?" And just like that, the first visit had begun. My father watched from a nearby bench, Sarah's hand in his, as Ilara pushed me on the swings, trying to make small talk with a 5-year-old who had no particular interest in her. I was polite but distant, the way I was with strangers at the grocery store. I answered Ilara's questions about school and my favorite books, but I kept glancing back at my father and Sarah, checking to make sure they were still there, my anchors in this strange new interaction. After 30 minutes, I climbed off the swings and ran back to my father. "Can we go home now?" I asked, loud enough for Ilara to hear. "I want to finish the puzzle we started." Ilara's face fell, a fleeting expression of disappointment, but she covered it quickly. "Maybe we can meet again soon," she suggested, her voice hopeful. "Maybe," I said, already distracted, reaching for Sarah's hand. We left Ilara standing alone in the parking lot, and my father saw her wipe her eyes as we drove away. The second visit, 2 weeks later, went similarly. I was friendly but unattached, more interested in the playground equipment than in Ilara. I called her Ilara instead of any maternal title. And when she tried to correct me, "You can call me Mom if you want," I simply said, "But I already have a mom," and pointed at Sarah. My father saw Ilara's frustration growing, a slow burn of annoyance. She had imagined some emotional reunion, he realized. A tearful embrace, an instant bond. She had thought I would be overjoyed to have my biological mother back, that our connection would be instant and undeniable. She hadn't considered that I was a whole person, a child who had been loved and cared for by other people for 5 years, people who had actually shown up, consistently, lovingly. By the third visit, Ilara's patience had worn thin. We met at a different park this time, in Federal Way, halfway between our house and wherever Ilara was living now. I was playing on the climbing structure when Ilara pulled my father aside, her voice tight with barely suppressed anger. "This isn't working," she said bluntly. "She doesn't see me as her mother. She's cold to me." "She's 5, Ilara," my father said, his voice calm but firm. And she doesn't know you. What did you expect? I expected you to help, Alara hissed, keeping her voice low so I wouldn't hear. You could be encouraging her to bond with me, but instead, you and your little replacement family are freezing me out. My father felt his temper flare, a rare occurrence. Sarah is not a replacement. She's Emma's mother in every way that matters. And we're not freezing you out. We're letting Emma decide for herself. That's not fair, and you know it, Alara shot back. She's a child. She doesn't know what's best for her. And you do? My father retorted, his voice rising. You, who left her in a parking lot? You, who didn't even check to see if she was alive for 5 years? They were both getting louder, their voices sharp with accusation. Sarah walked over quickly, placing herself between them, a quiet but formidable presence. This conversation is over, Sarah said firmly, her eyes fixed on Alara. Emma is watching, and we're not doing this in front of her. Alara looked like she wanted to argue, but then she glanced over and saw me staring at them from the top of the slide. My small face worried, my Mr. Hopscotch clutched tightly. Alara took a deep breath and stepped back. Fine, she said tightly, but I want more time with her. Unsupervised time. I'm her mother, Alex. I have rights. Actually, my father said, pulling out his phone, his voice now calm, deliberate, and chillingly precise. You don't. He pulled up the scanned copy of the divorce decree his attorney had sent him, the relevant section highlighted. Petitioner waives all rights to custody, visitation, and decision-making authority regarding the minor child. He showed her the screen. You signed this, Alara. You gave up your rights voluntarily. The only reason you're seeing Emma at all right now is because I'm allowing it. But that can end any time, Alara. And if you push me, it will. Alara stared at the document on his phone, her face going pale, the color draining from her cheeks as the full weight of her past choices crashed down on her. You can't do this. I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight you. Go ahead, my father said calmly, his voice devoid of emotion. My attorney would love to present a judge with 5 years of evidence showing complete abandonment. We have documented proof of every expense I've paid, every milestone you missed, every holiday that passed without a single card or phone call. You think a court is going to give you custody after that? The look on Alara's face, a mixture of shock, fear, and dawning horror, was worth every sleepless night my father had spent documenting everything. It was a moment of profound vindication, a quiet victory in a long, arduous battle. This story, my friends, is a testament to the power of showing up, of unwavering love, and the incredible strength found in the most unexpected places. If you're finding yourself drawn into this journey, if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal or the triumph of resilience, please take a moment to hit that like button. It truly helps this channel reach more people who might need to hear stories of hope and strength. And if you haven't already, subscribe and join our growing family here. We share stories that touch the heart, stories that remind us of the human spirit's incredible capacity to overcome. What do you think my father should have done in that moment? What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your perspectives and connecting with each and every one of you. Your stories and insights make this community truly special. Alara, despite the undeniable evidence presented to her, wasn't done. My father had underestimated her desperation, or perhaps her profound delusion that she deserved a second chance without consequences. 2 weeks after that tense confrontation at the park, a letter arrived from an attorney in Seattle. Alara was petitioning the court for a modification of custody arrangements, brazenly claiming she had been coerced into signing away her rights while in a vulnerable mental state. She was requesting joint custody, arguing that it was in my best interest to have a relationship with my biological mother. The audacity of it was breathtaking, a stark reminder of her capacity for self-deception. My father immediately forwarded the letter to Patricia Wong, his attorney, who called him within an hour. This is exactly what we expected, Alex, Patricia had said, her voice steady and professional, devoid of surprise. She has no case, but that doesn't mean she won't try. We'll need to respond formally, and I'll need you to gather all those documents we discussed. Every single piece of evidence showing the abandonment. I have it all, my father had replied, his voice calm, confident. Everything is organized in cloud storage. Good, Patricia had said, a hint of steel in her tone. Then we're going to bury her. The next 3 months were a blur of legal proceedings, a grueling, emotionally draining period. Ilara had managed to secure herself a lawyer, though not a particularly good one, as Patricia had noted. Probably someone working on a contingency fee who thought they could win a sympathetic hearing, she mused, highlighting the opportunistic nature of Ilara's legal representation. They filed motion after motion, each one a desperate attempt to rewrite history. They claimed Ilara had suffered from undiagnosed postpartum depression when she had left, a convenient excuse for her cruelty. They argued that Marcus Thorne had been emotionally abusive and had coerced her into abandoning me, shifting the blame entirely. They even suggested that my father had hidden me from Ilara and actively prevented contact, a blatant fabrication. Each claim, however, was systematically demolished by the mountain of evidence my father had meticulously collected. Patricia submitted the chilling text message Ilara had sent the night she left. "She's your problem now." There was no mention of mental health, only cold, calculated cruelty. They submitted phone records showing 0 attempts by Ilara to contact my father or me in 5 years. Not one call, not one text, until she had hired that private investigator. They submitted financial records proving Ilara had never paid a single dime of child support, never contributed to my care in any way. They submitted affidavits from Nana Lena, Aunt Clara, my pediatrician, and my preschool teacher, all testifying to my father's excellent care and Ilara's complete and utter absence. The truth, painstakingly documented, was an unyielding force. And then came the depositions, the most excruciating part of the process. My father had to sit across a table from Ilara and her attorney, forced to answer questions about the breakdown of his marriage, about that horrific night at the gas station, about his finances, his current marriage to Sarah, and his parenting. It had been an agonizing ordeal, dredging up old wounds, but he had stayed calm and factual, just as Patricia had coached him. He knew this wasn't about emotion. It was about presenting an undeniable case. Ilara's deposition, however, was a disaster for her case. Under oath, she was forced to admit she had been having an affair with Marcus before she had left my father. She admitted that Marcus had told her he didn't want children around. She admitted she had chosen to leave rather than end her relationship with Marcus. And most damningly, she admitted she had made no attempt to contact me for 5 years, even after things with Marcus had ended. The web of lies she had spun for so long began to unravel under the harsh light of legal scrutiny. "And why did your relationship with Mr. Thorne end?" Patricia had asked during the deposition, her voice deceptively soft. Ilara had shifted uncomfortably in her chair. He met someone else, someone younger. "So he left you the same way you left your husband and infant daughter?" Patricia had pressed, her question a sharp, incisive blow. "Objection," Ilara's attorney had interjected weakly. "Relevance. I'm establishing a pattern of Miss James's decision-making when relationships become inconvenient," Patricia had said smoothly, her point made. The deposition had gone on for hours, and by the end, Ilara had been in tears, her story full of holes and contradictions, her carefully constructed facade completely shattered. But the most damning moment, the one that sealed her fate, had come when Patricia asked a simple yet devastating question. "Miss James, in the 5 years since you left Emma, how much money have you saved for her future? College fund? Anything like that?" Ilara had hesitated, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. I was going through a difficult financial time. "That's not an answer," Patricia had stated, her voice unwavering. "How much money have you saved or set aside for your daughter?" "None," Ilara had finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "But I was planning to." "No further questions," Patricia had said, a quiet triumph in her tone. The truth, stark and unadorned, had spoken for itself. The court hearing was scheduled for late February 2025. My father took the day off work, dressed in his best suit, and sat in a King County courtroom while Judge Marianne Foster, a woman in her 60s with an unreadable expression, reviewed the mountains of evidence Patricia had assembled. Ilara showed up with her attorney, wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, attempting to project the image of a reformed woman who had made mistakes, but deserved forgiveness. The judge read through everything, her face giving nothing away, a silent arbiter of justice. Then, she looked up at Ilara. "Miss James," Judge Foster began, her voice clear and authoritative, "I've reviewed your petition and all the evidence submitted by both parties. I'm going to be very direct with you. This is one of the clearest cases of voluntary abandonment I've seen in 20 years on the bench." Ilara started to speak, but Judge Foster held up a hand, silencing her. You left your infant daughter at a gas station with her father and drove away. You sent a text message saying she was his problem. You made 0 attempts to contact your child for 5 years. You paid 0 child support. You didn't attend a single doctor's appointment, birthday party, or parent-teacher conference. You signed divorce papers that explicitly waived all your parental rights. And now you want to claim that you were coerced or mentally ill. Your Honor, I've changed, Alara said, her voice breaking, tears streaming down her face. I made terrible mistakes, but I want to be part of my daughter's life now. What you want is irrelevant, Judge Foster said sharply, her gaze unwavering. What matters is what's best for the child. And based on everything I've seen, you have demonstrated no capacity for consistent, selfless parenting. Mr. James has provided excellent care for his daughter. She's thriving in a stable home with 2 parents who have shown up for her every single day. I see no compelling reason to disrupt that. Judge Foster looked down at her papers, made a final note, and then delivered the crushing blow. The petition for modification of custody is denied. Furthermore, I'm granting Mr. James's counterpetition to terminate your parental rights entirely. You will have no legal claim to this child. Alara made a sound like she had been punched, a guttural gasp of disbelief. Your Honor, please, her attorney began, but Judge Foster cut him off. My decision is final. Miss James, you made your choice 5 years ago when you abandoned your daughter. You don't get to unmake it now because things didn't work out the way you'd hoped. This hearing is adjourned. My father sat there in stunned silence as the judge left the courtroom. It was over. Alara had no claim to me. His daughter was safe, legally, finally, completely. He looked over at Alara, who was sitting at the other table, tears streaming down her face, her carefully constructed image of remorse shattered. For a moment, just a fleeting moment, he felt a flash of pity. She had destroyed her own life with her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. But then he thought about that night at the gas station, about the hundreds of nights he had stayed up alone with a crying baby, about the birthday parties and first words and scraped knees that Alara had chosen to miss, and the pity evaporated. She had made her bed. Now she could lie in it. The legal battle was won. But the echoes of her choices would continue to reverberate, shaping our lives in ways we couldn't yet foresee. After the hearing, a profound sense of relief washed over my father, a peace he hadn't felt in years. The legal battle was over, the threat of Alara's re-entry into our lives officially neutralized. To celebrate, he took Sarah out to dinner at a beautiful restaurant in Tacoma, a place called Anthony's, overlooking the shimmering waters of the Puget Sound. They secured a table by the window, the city lights reflecting on the dark water, and ordered the good wine, the kind my father normally would have deemed too expensive. But that night, nothing felt too extravagant. It was a moment to savor, a quiet victory for the family they had painstakingly built. It's really over, Sarah had said, raising her glass, her eyes soft with emotion. She can't hurt Emma anymore. She can't, my father agreed, clinking his glass against hers, the sound a delicate chime of triumph. Emma's ours. Legally, finally, completely ours. They sat there, watching the lights dance on the water, and my father felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a deep, abiding peace. The weight that had unknowingly settled in his chest for half a decade finally lifted, allowing him to breathe freely, fully. He knew, with every fiber of his being, that he had done everything in his power to protect me, and he had succeeded. But the story, as life often reminds us, wasn't quite finished yet. 3 months later, in May 2025, my father's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, assuming it was spam. But something, an inexplicable premonition, made him answer. Hello, Alex James, an unfamiliar woman's voice spoke, calm and professional. My name is Jennifer Hartwell. I'm a social worker with the State of Oregon Department of Human Services. I'm calling about Alara James. My father's stomach dropped, a cold knot of dread forming. What about her? He asked, his voice tight. Miss James listed you as an emergency contact on some paperwork, though I understand you're no longer married, Jennifer explained. I'm calling to inform you that she's been hospitalized following a suicide attempt. She's stable now, but she's asking if she can speak with you. My father felt like he had been hit by a truck. The news a shocking, unexpected blow. A suicide attempt. Yes, Jennifer confirmed, her voice sympathetic. She was found by a neighbor and brought to Portland General Hospital. She's receiving mental health treatment now, but she specifically requested that someone contact you. My father closed his eyes, a wave of exhaustion washing over him. Even now, even after everything, Alara was pulling him back into her orbit, a gravitational force he thought he had escaped. I don't think that's a good idea, he said carefully, choosing his words. We're not in contact anymore. I understand, Jennifer said gently. I just needed to pass along the message. If you change your mind, here's my number. My father hung up and sat in his car in the warehouse parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He told Sarah about the call that evening. She listened quietly, her hand resting on his arm, then asked the question he had been asking himself all afternoon. Do you want to go see her? No, my father said immediately. Then, more honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks she's exactly where she belongs, dealing with the consequences of her choices. But another part of me feels bad. Because you're a good person who doesn't like seeing people suffer. Even people who hurt you. Sarah finished, her insight always sharp. Is that stupid? He asked, feeling vulnerable. No, Sarah said, her voice firm but kind. It's human. But you don't owe her anything, Alex. You especially don't owe her your emotional energy or your peace of mind. She made her choices. You're not responsible for saving her from them. My father thought about it for 2 more days, wrestling with his conscience, with the lingering echoes of a past he desperately wanted to leave behind. Then he made a decision. He drove to Portland on a Saturday, alone. Sarah had offered to come, but he knew he needed to do this by himself, to close this chapter of his life on his own terms, without any external influence. The hospital room was sterile and white, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic. Alara looked small in the bed, hooked up to IVs and monitors, a stark contrast to the confident, glamorous woman she had once pretended to be. She looked up when he walked in, and something in her expression crumbled, a raw vulnerability he had never seen before. You came, she whispered, her voice fragile. I came, my father said, staying near the door, maintaining a physical and emotional distance. But I'm not staying long. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm not okay, Alara said, tears starting to fall, tracing paths down her pale cheeks. I've ruined everything, Alex. Everything. I lost you. I lost Emma. I lost every good thing I ever had, and I can't get any of it back. No, my father agreed quietly, his voice devoid of judgment, just a simple statement of fact. You can't. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry for what I did, for leaving you both, for being such a terrible person. I don't know how to live with it. My father stood there, watching this woman who had once been his whole world fall apart, and he felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity anymore, just a kind of distant sadness for all the wasted years and broken promises. Alara, he said gently, his voice soft but firm, you can't go back and unmake your choices. None of us can. But you can decide who you want to be from this point forward. You can get help. You can work on yourself. You can try to become someone you're proud of. Not for me. Not for Emma. For yourself. How? Alara asked, her voice broken, desperate. How do I do that? That's something you have to figure out on your own, my father said. But I can tell you this. Staying focused on what you lost isn't going to help you. The only way forward is to actually move forward. They talked for another 20 minutes. My father told her about me, carefully, without details, but enough to let Alara know that her daughter was happy and loved and thriving. He told her that he hoped she would get better, that he didn't wish her harm, but that she couldn't be part of our lives. I understand, Alara said quietly, her voice resigned. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to. No, my father agreed. I didn't. He left the hospital feeling lighter somehow, a burden finally lifted. He had said what he needed to say, seen what he needed to see. Whatever happened to Alara now was her own responsibility. He had driven home to Spanaway, to the house where his wife and daughter were waiting, and he had let it all go. The years that followed were good ones, filled with the quiet joy of a life well lived, a testament to the power of forgiveness, not for Alara, but for himself. The years that followed my father's visit to Alara in the hospital were marked by a steady, upward trajectory. Life, for us, had found its rhythm, a harmonious blend of love, stability, and growth. In 2026, my father received another promotion, this time to Director of Logistics Operations. With a salary of $95,000, more money than he had ever imagined making, back in those desperate days living in Nanalina's basement. Sarah's career at the tech company also flourished, her intelligence and dedication leading to significant advancements. Together, they were able to refinance our house, creating a proper playroom for me, a space filled with books, art supplies, and the joyful chaos of childhood. I, Emma, had grown into a bright, confident 7-year-old who adored reading and soccer, and asked approximately 8 million questions a day, my curiosity boundless. I had started calling Sarah Mom, without any prompting, a natural evolution of our bond, a testament to her unwavering presence and love. When my second-grade class did a family tree project, I drew my father, Sarah, Nanalina, Aunt Clara, and my cousins, without a second thought. That was my family. Those were the people who showed up, who loved me, who were always there. Alara had become a distant memory, a name that occasionally crossed my father's mind, but no longer carried any emotional weight. He had heard through the grapevine. Nanalina's former daughter-in-law had reached out once, trying to guilt him into letting Alara see me, that Alara had moved back to Seattle and was working as a receptionist somewhere. She had apparently gotten treatment after the hospitalization and was doing better. My father was glad for her in an abstract way, a general human kindness, but he had no desire to reconnect. His life was full, vibrant, and peaceful without her in it. He had built a sanctuary, and he was fiercely protective of its tranquility. Then came November 2029. It was a regular Saturday, nothing special planned. My father and Sarah had taken me to the Costco in Lakewood to stock up on groceries and grab lunch at the food court, one of my favorite weekend activities because I loved their pizza. We had filled our cart with the usual suburban staples, bulk cereal, a rotisserie chicken, enough sparkling water to supply a small army. We were in the checkout line. I was chattering excitedly about my upcoming soccer tournament when my father heard someone say his name. Alex James. He turned around and found himself face to face with Marcus Thorne, Alara's former boyfriend. The man looked older, pushing 55 now, with distinguished gray at his temples and designer glasses that probably cost more than my father's monthly grocery budget. He was wearing expensive casual wear, the kind of artfully distressed jeans and cashmere sweater that only wealthy people could truly pull off. And he had his arm around a woman who looked to be in her mid-30s, blonde and polished, a younger version of the woman Alara had once aspired to be. Marcus, my father had said, surprised, making his voice come out flat, devoid of any warmth. It's been a while. 10 years at least, Marcus had said with that easy smile of someone who had never really faced consequences for anything. I almost didn't recognize you. You look great, man. Really great. My father was acutely aware of Sarah standing beside him, her hand tightening slightly on the shopping cart handle, a silent signal of support and caution. I had stopped talking and was looking up at this stranger with curious, innocent eyes. This is my wife, Tiffany, Marcus had continued, gesturing to the blonde woman. And this is... I'm sorry. I don't think I know your wife's name. Sarah, my father had said shortly, his tone clipped. And this is our daughter, Emma. Marcus's eyes had flicked to me, and something had crossed his face. Recognition, maybe, or a flicker of guilt. He had known who I was, my father realized. He had known about the baby Alara had abandoned to be with him. Beautiful family, Marcus had said, and it had sounded genuine, which somehow made it worse. A hollow compliment from a man who had played a part in our past pain. Are you still in Seattle? Marcus asked, attempting polite conversation. Tacoma area, my father said, offering no more details, keeping his answers brief and guarded. We're in Bellevue, Tiffany had chimed in, her voice bright and oblivious, completely unaware of the charged history unfolding before her. Marcus just made partner at his firm. We're celebrating with a kitchen renovation. Did you see those Italian marble countertops by the entrance? We're thinking of doing something similar. My father felt Sarah's hand on his arm, a gentle reminder to keep his cool, to not let the past ignite the present. Congratulations, he had said to Marcus, his voice flat. "Sounds like things worked out well for you." There had been a beat of awkward silence, heavy with unspoken truths. Marcus shifted his weight, and for the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable, the easy smile faltering. "Listen, Alex," he had said, lowering his voice slightly, a performative gesture of sincerity. "I know this is random, but I actually wanted to reach out to you a while back about what happened with Alara." My father felt his jaw tighten, a familiar anger stirring. "What about it?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," Marcus had said, his gaze avoiding my father's eyes. "For my part in it, the whole situation was messy, and I didn't handle it well. I was going through my own stuff with my divorce, and I wasn't thinking clearly about the impact on other people, specifically on you and your kid." I tugged on my father's hand, oblivious to the adult drama. "Daddy, can we get the pizza now?" "In a minute, sweetheart," my father had said, then looked back at Marcus, his eyes piercing. "You're apologizing for having an affair with my wife, for how it went down," Marcus had clarified, attempting to reframe his apology. "Look, I'm not proud of how I acted back then. I was selfish. I told Alara I didn't want kids around, and I know that put her in an impossible position. If I'd handled it differently, maybe she wouldn't have made the choices she made." My father had wanted to laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. The man was actually trying to absolve himself by suggesting he was somehow responsible for Alara's choices, for her abandonment of her own child. It was a pathetic attempt to shift blame, a testament to his own lack of true accountability. "Marcus," my father had said slowly, deliberately, his voice cutting through the noise of the busy Costco. "Alara left our 6-month-old daughter at a gas station in the rain. She texted me that Emma was my problem now and drove away. She didn't make those choices because of anything you did. She made them because that's who she was. She chose her own comfort over her child's welfare. That's on her, not you." Marcus looked genuinely taken aback, his polished facade cracking further. I didn't know it happened like that. She told me it was more of a mutual decision, that you'd agreed she needed space." "She lied to you," my father said flatly, his voice devoid of emotion, "which shouldn't surprise either of us, given how your relationship started." Tiffany, Marcus's wife, had been looking increasingly uncomfortable, clearly regretting being present for this conversation. She touched Marcus's arm. "Honey, maybe we should—" "How is Alara?" my father asked, surprising himself, the question escaping before he could stop it. "Do you know?" Marcus shook his head. "We haven't spoken in years. Last I heard she was back in Seattle somewhere, but that's all I know. After we broke up, she went off the radar for a while. She tried to get custody of Emma," my father said, delivering another truth bomb. "A few years back, lost in court, judge terminated her parental rights entirely." Marcus winced, a genuine reaction this time. "Jesus, I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be," my father said, his voice firm. "It was the best thing for Emma. She's got 2 parents who love her and show up for her every single day. She doesn't need someone who's going to drift in and out whenever it's convenient." There had been another awkward pause, thick with the weight of their shared, complicated past. Then, Marcus extended his hand. "For what it's worth, Alex, I'm glad things worked out for you. You seem like you've built a good life." My father shook his hand briefly, a perfunctory gesture. "I have. No thanks to you or Alara." They parted ways, and my father stood there for a moment processing the encounter, before I tugged his hand again. "Daddy, pizza?" "Yeah, kiddo, let's get pizza." They got their food and sat at one of those high tables in the Costco food court. I was happily working my way through a slice almost as big as my face. Sarah waited until I was distracted before leaning over. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," my father said, and he was surprised to find it was true. Running into him was weird, but it doesn't really matter anymore. That whole part of my life feels like it happened to someone else. "It did, in a way," Sarah said. "You're not the same person you were then." She had been right. The Alex who had stood in that gas station parking lot 10 years ago, broken and terrified and alone, was gone. He had been replaced by someone stronger, someone who had fought for his daughter and won, someone who had built a real life from nothing. But the universe apparently wasn't done throwing curveballs his way. There was one more twist, one more echo from the past, that would force him to confront the lingering instability Alara brought into our lives. 2 weeks after the unexpected encounter with Marcus Thorne at Costco, My father was at work when he received a call from an unknown number. Normally, he would let such calls go to voicemail, assuming it was spam or a telemarketer. But something, an inexplicable prickle of intuition, made him answer. Mr. James, this is Detective Sarah Park with the Seattle Police Department. I'm calling about Alara James. I understand she's your ex-wife. My father's heart immediately started pounding, a familiar surge of adrenaline. What happened? Is she okay? He asked, a primal concern for the mother of his child, despite everything. She's fine, Detective Park said quickly, her voice reassuring. But she's been the victim of a crime, and your name came up during our investigation. Would you be able to come down to the station to answer some questions? My father drove to Seattle that afternoon, his mind racing with a dizzying array of possibilities. What kind of crime? Why did they need to talk to him? He had had zero contact with Alara in years, a deliberate and carefully maintained distance. The police station was exactly as he had expected. Fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow, beige walls, the faint lingering smell of bad coffee. Detective Park was a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, a comforting blend of empathy and professionalism. She led him to a small interview room and offered him coffee, which he politely declined, his stomach too knotted with apprehension. Mr. James, thank you for coming in, she began, her voice calm and steady. I want to stress that you're not in any trouble. We're investigating a case of financial fraud, and Alara James is one of the victims. Your name came up in her financial records, and we needed to verify some information. Financial fraud? My father was confused. What does that have to do with me? He asked, the pieces not fitting together. Miss James was involved with a man named Richard Delroy for the past 2 years, Detective Park explained, her tone matter of fact. Mr. Delroy ran what we believe was a romance scam. He targeted women online, built relationships with them, and then convinced them to invest in fake business opportunities. He scammed at least 15 women out of a combined $300,000. My father felt a wash of secondhand embarrassment, a familiar wave of disappointment in Alara's perpetual poor judgment. She had fallen for a scam artist, another fantasy life crumbling around her. In Ms. James's case, Detective Park continued, she gave him approximately $42,000 over the course of their relationship. She also took out credit cards in her name at his request, which he maxed out. She's currently about $70,000 in debt. Jesus, my father muttered, the sheer scale of her financial ruin staggering. During our investigation, we found documents in Mr. Delroy's possession that had your name on them. Specifically, documents related to your daughter, Emma, her birth certificate, custody papers, that sort of thing. Can you tell me how he would have gotten those? My father felt a cold, righteous anger rising within him, a protective fury. Alara gave him my daughter's personal information, he stated, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. It appears so, Detective Park said carefully, her expression unreadable. We're not sure why. He claimed he was helping Miss James with a custody case, though obviously there was no active case. We think he may have been planning to attempt some kind of identity theft or fraud using the child's information, but we caught him before anything happened. My father clenched his fists under the table, the thought of my vulnerability at the hands of a con artist chilling him to the bone. Where is this guy now? He demanded. In custody, facing multiple charges. He'll likely be going to prison for a long time. But I need to ask you, Mr. James, Detective Park continued, her gaze direct. When was the last time you had contact with Alara James? My father told her everything. The gas station abandonment, the court case, the termination of parental rights, the brief hospital visit, and then nothing for years. He explained that Alara had no legal claim to me and absolutely should not have had access to any documents related to me, let alone shared them with a stranger. Detective Park took notes throughout, nodding occasionally, her expression thoughtful. It seems like Miss James kept copies of documents from before the court terminated her rights, she said. Technically not illegal since they were hers at one point, but definitely concerning that she shared them with someone who was clearly a criminal. I'd recommend you put a credit freeze on your daughter's social security number just to be safe, and document this incident, in case there are future custody issues. My father left the police station feeling shaken, the sense of peace he had cultivated so carefully momentarily shattered. Even years later, even after losing all legal rights to me, Ilara was still making decisions that could have harmed her own daughter. She had given a con artist access to my personal information, all in pursuit of what? Another relationship with another man who had promised her something better, another fantasy life. Some people, he realized with a weary sigh, never learned. He drove home and explained everything to Sarah. They immediately froze my credit and filed all the police reports, taking every precaution to protect me from the lingering fallout of Ilara's choices. I, myself, had been oblivious to the whole thing, happily engrossed in my own world. I was more interested in showing my father the A I had gotten on my spelling test, my small triumph a stark contrast to the adult complexities swirling around me. That night, after I had gone to bed, my father and Sarah sat on their back porch with glasses of wine, looking out at their small yard where my soccer ball sat abandoned by the fence. "Do you think she'll ever stop?" Sarah asked quietly, her voice tinged with a weariness my father understood. "Ilara? Will she ever just move on and leave us alone?" "I don't know," my father said honestly, staring into the darkness. "Part of me thinks she's just broken in some fundamental way. She keeps chasing these fantasies of what her life should be, and every time reality doesn't match up, she makes worse and worse decisions." "Do you feel bad for her?" Sarah asked, her voice gentle. My father thought about it. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but mostly I just feel tired. Tired of her being this dark cloud that occasionally rolls back into our lives. Tired of having to be vigilant and protective because she might do something stupid that affects Emma." "She can't hurt Emma now," Sarah reminded him, her voice firm. "Not legally, and Emma doesn't even remember her." That had been true. I had no memory of Ilara, no attachment, no curiosity even. When the topic of biological mothers came up, usually from well-meaning but nosy people who asked invasive questions, I would simply shrug and say, "I have a mom. Her name is Sarah." End of discussion. The truth was, Ilara had become a footnote in our lives, a cautionary tale, but her capacity for chaos, even from a distance, remained a subtle, unsettling presence. 6 months later, in May 2030, my father received one final communication from Ilara. It was a letter, handwritten, forwarded to him by Patricia Wong, his attorney, because Ilara had sent it directly to Patricia's office. Patricia had called him first, her voice cautious, to ask if he wanted to read it, or simply shred it, offering him the choice to avoid any further emotional entanglement. "What does it say?" my father had asked, a flicker of curiosity, a lingering thread of the past, still present. "It's an apology letter," Patricia had said. "Pretty long, lots of regrets and acknowledgments of her mistakes. No requests for contact, no legal maneuvering, just an apology." "Send it to me," my father had decided, a quiet resolve in his voice. "I'll read it." The letter arrived 2 days later. My father waited until he was alone to open it, sitting in his car during his lunch break, the quiet solitude of the vehicle a necessary buffer for what he knew would be an emotional experience. He unfolded the pages, the familiar script of Ilara's handwriting a ghost from a distant past. "Dear Alex," the letter began, "I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to respond. I definitely don't expect you to forgive me, but my therapist says I need to try to make amends to the people I've hurt, even if those amends aren't accepted. So, here I am. I've spent the last year in intensive therapy working through why I make the choices I make. I've been diagnosed with several things: borderline personality disorder, attachment issues stemming from my childhood, a pattern of self-sabotage that keeps repeating. None of these diagnoses excuse what I did to you and Emma. They just help explain it. I abandoned my daughter at a gas station. I drove away from my baby because I thought a man who I barely knew could give me a better life than the one I had with you. I was selfish, delusional, and cruel. There's no other way to say it. You were a good husband. You worked hard. You were faithful. You tried your best to make me happy. I repaid that by betraying you in the worst possible way. You were a good father. You are a good father. Emma is lucky to have you. I know I lost the custody case. I know my rights were terminated. I know that Emma doesn't know me and doesn't need me in her life. I'm not writing this to try to change any of that. I'm writing because you deserve to hear me say that I was wrong about everything. You told me once at the hospital that I needed to become someone I could be proud of. You were right. I'm trying. I'm working a regular job, going to therapy twice a week, staying away from men who promise me the world. I'm learning to be okay with an ordinary life. It's harder than I thought it would be. I got scammed recently, lost a lot of money, got into a lot of debt. I almost let it destroy me, but instead, I'm using it as a wake-up call. I'm done chasing fantasy lives with fantasy people. I'm done hurting people in pursuit of something that doesn't exist. I hope Emma is happy. I hope she's surrounded by people who love her. I hope she never knows what it's like to have a mother who abandoned her. If Sarah is good to her, then I'm grateful. Emma deserves a mother who shows up. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know that I see clearly now what I couldn't see then. I had everything, and I threw it away. That's on me. No one else. I'm sorry, Alex, for everything. Ilara. My father sat in his car for a long time after reading the letter, watching people come and go from the warehouse loading docks, the mundane rhythm of life continuing around him. He felt a complex mix of emotions: anger at all the wasted years, sadness for the family that could have been, relief that I had been spared growing up with someone so unstable. But mostly, he felt closure. Ilara had finally admitted what he had needed to hear, what he had unconsciously yearned for, that none of it had been his fault, that he had been enough, that he had done his best, that her choices had been hers alone. The burden of unspoken blame, of lingering self-doubt, finally lifted. He folded the letter carefully and put it in his glove compartment. He hadn't responded, and he never would, but knowing that Ilara finally understood what she had done, what she had lost, that was enough. That weekend, my father and Sarah took me to Point Defiance Park, the same place where he had proposed to Sarah all those years ago. I ran ahead on the trail, my ponytail bouncing, shouting back to them about a squirrel I had spotted, my laughter echoing through the trees. Sarah slipped her hand into my father's. "You've been quiet the last few days. Everything okay?" "Yeah," my father had said, and he had meant it. Everything's okay. Better than okay, actually. The letter from Ilara, it helped, he admitted. Not in the way you might think, but it closed a door I didn't realize was still slightly open. They watched me chase the squirrel, my pure joy a stark contrast to the shadows of the past. "You know what I realized?" my father said, his voice thoughtful. "That night at the gas station when Ilara left me there with Emma, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd hit rock bottom and would never recover. But that moment was actually when my real life began. Everything good I have now, you, this family, my career, even just knowing who I am, it all grew from that moment." "Sounds like you're making peace with it," Sarah had said, her eyes warm. "I am," my father agreed, "because I finally understand that Ilara leaving wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing that ever happened to Emma." I ran back to them, breathless and excited, demanding they come see the squirrel's nest I had found. My father scooped me up, making me shriek with laughter, and carried me on his shoulders to see the discovery. In that moment, walking through the park with his daughter on his shoulders and his wife by his side, my father felt something he hadn't felt in years, complete gratitude for exactly how his life had turned out. Because here's what he learned through all of it: the abandonment, the struggle, the legal battles, the confrontations with the past. Sometimes the people who walk away from you are doing you the greatest favor of your life. They're removing themselves so that the right people can find you. They're clearing the path for the family you're meant to have. Ilara had left because she was chasing a fantasy, but in leaving, she had made room for someone real, someone who stayed, someone who showed up every single day through tantrums and doctor's appointments and soccer games and homework struggles and all the beautiful, mundane moments that make up a real family. I would grow up knowing I was chosen, not just by my father, who had fought like hell to keep me, but by Sarah, who had chosen to love a child who wasn't biologically hers, but was hers in every way that mattered. That was the real victory. Not the court case, not Ilara's apology, not even the successful career my father had built. The victory was the 8-year-old girl on his shoulders who felt secure and loved and happy, who would never know what it felt like to wonder if she was wanted. As they walked back to the car, I chattered about squirrels and acorns and could we please get ice cream. My father caught Sarah's eye and smiled. She smiled back, and in that smile was everything they had built together: trust, partnership, family. Some people spend their whole lives chasing what they think they deserve. My father had learned to be grateful for what he had earned, not through luck or circumstance, but through showing up day after day and doing the hard work of being a good father and a good partner. That night, after I had been tucked into bed with Mr. Hopscotch and 3 stories read, my father sat down at his computer and wrote his own letter. Not to Alara. She didn't deserve his words anymore, but to himself, to the younger Alex who had stood in that gas station parking lot, terrified and alone. It gets better, he had written. The pain fades. The fear fades. What remains is strength you didn't know you had, and love you didn't know you deserved. You're going to be okay. More than okay. You're going to build something beautiful from the ruins. The woman who left you did you a favor, though it won't feel like it for a long time. She removed herself from Emma's life, and in doing so, she made room for someone better, someone who will love your daughter like her own, someone who will love you the way you deserve to be loved. Keep going. Keep showing up. Keep fighting for your daughter. It's worth it. Trust me. I know. He had saved the letter in a folder on his computer, dated May 15th, 2030. Maybe one day, when I was older and had questions about my biological mother, he would share it with me. Or maybe he would just keep it for himself, a private reminder of how far he had come. Either way, it was the final punctuation mark on that chapter of his life. The next morning, my father had woken up to me jumping on his bed, announcing that I had lost my first tooth, and the tooth fairy owed me money. Sarah had laughed and pulled me under the covers for a tickle fight, and my father had joined in, and for a few perfect minutes, their bedroom had been full of nothing but laughter and love. This was his life now. This was his family, and he wouldn't trade it for anything. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's letting people face the consequences of their own actions while you build a better life than they ever imagined you could. My father didn't win because Alara lost. He won because he chose every single day to show up for the people who mattered. He won because he transformed his rock bottom into a foundation. The people who abandon you are not the ones who define your worth. The people who stay, the ones who choose you when it's hard, who love you when it's inconvenient, who show up when it's unglamorous. Those are the people who reveal your true value. And if you're very lucky, you become one of those people too. Life continued its beautiful, unpredictable dance, weaving new threads into the tapestry of our chosen family. The years that followed Alara's final letter were not without their small challenges, as all lives are, but they were met with a unified front, a strength forged in adversity. My father and Sarah, now a seasoned team, navigated everything from my scraped knees and childhood anxieties to school projects and the ever-present demands of their flourishing careers. Their partnership was a testament to mutual respect, unwavering support, and a shared vision for our future. They were not just partners in life, but co-architects of a home filled with laughter, learning, and unconditional love. My father's career continued its ascent. By 2032, he was overseeing logistics for an entire region, his strategic mind and calm demeanor proving invaluable in a high-pressure environment. His salary now comfortably exceeded 6 figures, a far cry from the days of struggling to make rent. Sarah, too, found herself in a leadership role at her tech company, her innovative solutions and collaborative spirit earning her widespread recognition. Their financial stability wasn't about extravagance. It was about security, about providing me with opportunities they hadn't had, and about the quiet satisfaction of building something substantial from the ground up. They invested wisely, planned for my college education, and even started a small fund for future family adventures, dreams they once thought impossible. Our home in Spanaway became a hub of activity. The playroom my father and Sarah had created for me was constantly in use, filled with the sounds of imaginative play, the rustle of turning book pages, and the occasional clatter of building blocks. I was thriving, a testament to the stable, loving environment they had cultivated. My curiosity, once a gentle spark, had ignited into a blazing fire. I devoured books, excelled in school, and continued to pursue my passion for soccer, my small frame a blur of motion on the field. My bond with Sarah deepened with each passing year. The term birth mother became a distant abstract concept, while mom was a living, breathing reality, a constant source of comfort, guidance, and unwavering affection. I remember one particular evening, when I was about 10 years old. We were sitting around the dinner table, sharing stories from our day, a cherished ritual. I had been learning about genetics in school, And a question, innocent but profound, had popped into my head. "Daddy," I asked, "do I look like my birth mother?" My father paused, his fork halfway to his mouth, and exchanged a quick glance with Sarah. He could have evaded the question, could have steered the conversation away, but he chose honesty, a cornerstone of our family. "Well, Emma," he began, "you have my dark hair and my serious expression sometimes. But your smile, that bright, uninhibited smile, that's all your own. And your birth mother, she had a different kind of beauty, more focused on outward appearances." Sarah, ever graceful, chimed in, "And you have your daddy's kindness, Emma, and his determination. You have my love for learning and my silly sense of humor. You are a beautiful blend of so many wonderful things. And most importantly, you are uniquely you." I considered their words, my young mind processing the nuances. "So, I don't really look like her?" I asked, a hint of curiosity, but no longing. "Not in the ways that truly matter, sweetheart," my father said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You look like love. You look like strength. You look like the best parts of all of us." I smiled, completely satisfied, and went back to my dinner, the question answered, the lingering shadow of a forgotten past dispelled by the warmth of our present. Ilara, as my father had hoped, truly became a distant memory. The grapevine occasionally offered snippets of information. She was still in Seattle, still working as a receptionist, seemingly maintaining a stable but unremarkable life. My father heard she had continued therapy, that she was making genuine efforts to manage her mental health. He felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, not for her sake, but for the universal human need for healing. He didn't wish her ill, but he also knew, with absolute certainty, that her path was separate from ours. The door he had closed had remained shut, not out of malice, but out of a profound need to protect the peace and stability he had fought so hard to build for me. Our family expanded in subtle, beautiful ways. Nana Lena, though aging, remained a vibrant presence, her wisdom and quiet strength a constant source of comfort. Aunt Clara and her family were frequent visitors, their children my beloved cousins, creating a network of support and shared joy. We celebrated holidays, took family vacations, and navigated the everyday triumphs and tribulations that define a family. My father and Sarah often spoke about the concept of a chosen family, a bond forged not by blood, but by deliberate choice, by showing up, by unwavering love. They taught me that true family isn't about genetic ties, but about the people who stand by you, who lift you up, who celebrate your victories and comfort you in your defeats. This spiritual understanding of family became a core tenet of my upbringing. I learned that love is an action, a consistent presence, a choice made every single day. It wasn't about grand gestures or fleeting promises. It was about the mundane, beautiful moments, the bedtime stories, the shared meals, the comforting hugs, the patient explanations. It was about the people who showed up, day in and day out, through thick and thin. This profound lesson, born from the crucible of my father's abandonment, became the bedrock of my identity, shaping my understanding of relationships and my own worth. I knew, without a doubt, that I was wanted, cherished, and deeply loved, not despite my past, but because of the incredible journey my father had undertaken to secure my future. The journey from that gas station to our bustling, loving home was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience, for transformation, for finding light in the deepest darkness. It was a story of a man who, faced with unimaginable betrayal, chose not to succumb to despair, but to rise, to build, to create a legacy of love. And in doing so, he not only saved me, but he also saved himself, discovering a strength and a purpose he never knew he possessed. The echoes of the past still lingered, faint whispers on the wind, but they no longer held power. They were simply reminders of how far we had come, and how truly blessed we were to have found each other. As I grew older, the story of my birth mother, Ilara, became less a source of pain and more a narrative of understanding. My father and Sarah had always been open and honest, answering my questions with age-appropriate candor, never demonizing Ilara, but always emphasizing the choices she made and the consequences that followed. This approach allowed me to form my own conclusions, free from bitterness or resentment. I understood that her actions were a reflection of her own struggles, not a commentary on my worth. This was a profound gift, a spiritual lesson in empathy and self-acceptance. By the time I was a teenager, navigating the complexities of high school and the burgeoning questions of identity, I had a clear sense of who I was and where I belonged. My family was my father, Sarah, Nana Lena, and Aunt Clara's clan. Alara was simply a biological fact, a distant figure in a story that had ultimately led to my greatest blessings. I had no desire to seek her out, no burning need for answers beyond what I already knew. My life was full, rich with love and purpose, and the past held no sway over my present or future. Then, in the spring of 2038, when I was 18 and preparing for college, an unexpected event brought Alara back into our periphery, not through her own actions, but through the actions of others. My father received a call from a distant relative of Alara's, a cousin he barely knew, who had somehow tracked him down. The cousin informed him that Alara had passed away suddenly from an unexpected illness. It was a quiet, unceremonious end to a life that had once caused so much turmoil. My father felt a strange mix of emotions. There was no grief, no profound sorrow, but a quiet, reflective sadness for a life unfulfilled, for the choices that had led her down a solitary path. He told Sarah, and they discussed how to tell me. They decided to be direct, as always. We sat in the living room, the same room where they had first told me about my birth mother all those years ago. "Emma," my father began, his voice gentle, "we have some news about Alara." He explained what he had learned, the simple, stark facts of her passing. I listened, my expression thoughtful. "Oh," I said, the words soft, almost a whisper. "I'm sorry to hear that she was sick." There were no tears, no dramatic outpouring of emotion, just a quiet acknowledgement. "Do you feel anything, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, her hand resting on my knee. I thought for a moment. "I feel a little sad," I admitted. "Not for me, because I have you and Daddy, but sad that she never really found what she was looking for. Sad that she missed out on so much." My father and Sarah exchanged a look, a silent understanding of the profound maturity in my response. I had processed her life and death with a wisdom beyond my years, a testament to the emotional intelligence they had nurtured in me. The cousin also mentioned that Alara had left behind a small, unexpected inheritance. It wasn't much, a modest sum from a life that had never quite achieved the glamour she craved, but it was something. My father, after consulting with Sarah and Patricia Wong, decided to accept it, not for himself, but for me. It was placed into my college fund, a final, unexpected contribution from a mother who had been absent for so long. It felt like a strange, almost poetic twist of fate, a final, tangible acknowledgement of her biological connection, even in death. This unexpected inheritance, however, came with a curious attachment. Among Alara's few belongings, the cousin had found a small, leather-bound journal. It was old, its pages yellowed, and it contained entries spanning years, starting even before I was born. The cousin, unsure what to do with it, had sent it to my father, believing it might offer some insight, some closure. My father, after much deliberation, decided to keep it, tucked away in a safe place, knowing that one day I might want to read it. That day came a few months after I started college. I was home for a weekend visit, sitting on the porch swing with my father, sharing stories about my classes and new friends. The conversation drifted, as it often did, to deeper topics, to life's big questions. "Daddy," I said, "do you ever wonder what Alara was really thinking? What was truly going on inside her head?" My father looked at me, a knowing look in his eyes. "I do, Emma, and I think I have something that might help you understand, if you're ready." He went inside and returned with the small, leather-bound journal. I took it, my fingers tracing the worn cover, a tangible link to a woman I barely knew. I spent the rest of the weekend immersed in its pages, reading Alara's raw, unfiltered thoughts. It was a painful, illuminating journey. I read about her deep-seated insecurities, her yearning for a life she felt she deserved but couldn't attain, her struggles with mental health that had gone undiagnosed for so long. I read about her affair with Marcus, her desperate belief that he held the key to her happiness, and her subsequent heartbreak when he left her. I read about her shame, her regret, her attempts at therapy, and her slow, arduous journey towards self-acceptance. What struck me most was not anger, but a profound sense of sadness and understanding. I saw a woman trapped in her own pain, chasing illusions, unable to connect with the real, unconditional love that was right in front of her. I read about her fleeting thoughts of me, scattered mentions of a daughter she knew she had abandoned, but couldn't bring herself to face. There were no grand declarations of love, no desperate pleas for forgiveness, just a quiet, almost detached acknowledgement of my existence, buried beneath layers of her own turmoil. The journal didn't change my perception of my family, or my love for my father and Sarah. If anything, it deepened my appreciation for their unwavering presence, their steadfast love, their choice to show up every single day. It gave me a deeper understanding of the complexities of the human heart, the fragility of the mind, and the devastating consequences of choices driven by fear and self-delusion. I closed the journal, a heavy weight in my hands, and felt a final, profound sense of closure. Ilara's story was tragic, but it was her story, not mine. My story was one of resilience, of chosen family, of love that conquered all. I returned the journal to my father, a quiet understanding passing between us. "Thank you, Daddy," I said, my voice soft. It helped. I understand now. He simply nodded, his eyes full of love. "You are strong, Emma," he said, "stronger than you know." And in that moment, I knew he was right. I had inherited his strength, his resilience, his capacity for love. Ilara's legacy wasn't her abandonment. It was the strength it had forged in my father, and the beautiful, unbreakable family he had built for me. Her story was a cautionary tale, but mine was a testament to hope, to the power of choosing love, and to the enduring truth that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected and painful places. With the chapter of Ilara finally and completely closed, a new sense of freedom and clarity blossomed within me. The journal, while painful to read, had provided a final, crucial piece of the puzzle, allowing me to understand her story without letting it define mine. It solidified my gratitude for the life my father and Sarah had built for me, a life rich in love, stability, and unwavering support. As I navigated my college years, pursuing a degree in social work, I often reflected on my own unique upbringing, realizing how profoundly it had shaped my desire to help others navigate their own complex family dynamics and personal struggles. My studies became more than just academic pursuits. They were a personal quest for understanding, a way to channel my own experiences into a meaningful career. I delved into courses on child development, family therapy, and the psychology of trauma, finding resonance in every lecture and textbook. I saw echoes of Ilara's struggles in case studies, recognizing the patterns of attachment issues and personality disorders, but also seeing the potential for healing and growth. This perspective, born from my own history, gave me a unique empathy, a deep well of compassion for those who felt lost or broken. My relationship with my father and Sarah continued to deepen, evolving from parental guidance to a cherished friendship. They were my biggest cheerleaders, my confidants, and my unwavering anchors. We shared everything, from my academic triumphs to my occasional dating woes, their wisdom and humor always a comforting presence. Sarah, in particular, became a mentor in my chosen field, her pragmatic approach to problem-solving and her deep understanding of human behavior proving invaluable. She encouraged me to pursue internships, to gain practical experience, and to always approach my work with both intellect and heart. During my junior year of college, I secured an internship at a local nonprofit organization that focused on supporting single-parent families and children who had experienced abandonment or neglect. It was challenging, emotionally demanding work, but it felt profoundly right. I met children who reminded me of my younger self, their eyes holding a mixture of resilience and vulnerability. I met parents, often fathers, who were struggling to navigate the complexities of single parenthood, their dedication mirroring my own father's journey. I shared my story, carefully and appropriately, finding that my lived experience created an immediate, powerful connection with the families I served. They saw not just a social worker, but someone who truly understood their pain and their hope. One particular case resonated deeply with me. A young father, Mark, had been left by his wife with their infant son, Leo, under circumstances eerily similar to my father's story. Mark was overwhelmed, struggling financially, and consumed by a sense of failure and betrayal. I worked closely with him, helping him navigate the social services system, connecting him with resources for childcare and financial aid, and most importantly, offering him emotional support. I shared snippets of my father's journey, emphasizing his resilience, his unwavering commitment, and the beautiful life he had built. "It gets better, Mark," I told him one day, my voice firm with conviction. "It's incredibly hard now, but you are building something real, something precious. Your son will know he was chosen, and that love will be his foundation." Mark looked at me, tears in his eyes. "How do you know?" he asked, his voice raw. "Because," I said, a gentle smile on my face, "my father was you, and I am Leo." The connection was immediate, profound. He saw hope in my eyes, a living testament to the possibility of healing and thriving. This experience solidified my calling, confirming that my path was not just a career, but a purpose, a way to transform my own past into a source of strength and healing for others. As I approached graduation, I began to envision my future, not just as a social worker, but as an advocate, a voice for children and families who had been marginalized or forgotten. I dreamed of creating programs that offered comprehensive support, not just practical resources, but emotional and spiritual guidance, helping individuals rebuild their lives from the ground up. My father and Sarah encouraged these dreams, offering their own expertise in logistics and organizational development to help me conceptualize my ideas. They were not just parents. They were partners in my vision, their belief in me unwavering. I also found love, a deep and abiding connection with a kind, intelligent man named Ben. We met through a mutual friend during my senior year, and from our first conversation, there was an undeniable spark, a shared understanding of life's complexities. Ben was a teacher, passionate about education and deeply empathetic. He knew my story, and he embraced it, seeing it not as baggage, but as a testament to my strength and compassion. He loved my father and Sarah, and he quickly became a cherished member of our chosen family, his presence adding another layer of joy and stability to my life. Our relationship was built on the same principles my father and Sarah had instilled in me: honesty, mutual respect, and unwavering support. We talked for hours about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. He saw the fire in my belly, the passion for social justice, and he encouraged me to pursue it with all my heart. He was a steady, grounding presence, a partner who understood the depths of my empathy and the strength of my convictions. I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within my soul, that I had found a love that was real, authentic, and built to last. The echoes of Alara's choices, once a source of pain and uncertainty, had transformed into a powerful catalyst for my own growth. Her abandonment, once a wound, had become a scar, a reminder of resilience, a testament to the transformative power of love. I stood on the precipice of adulthood, ready to embark on my own journey, armed with a profound understanding of what truly matters in life. Not blood ties, but the bonds forged in love, commitment, and the unwavering choice to show up every single day. My story was not one of victimhood, but of triumph, a living testament to the enduring power of a chosen family. Graduation day arrived, a vibrant celebration of years of hard work and dedication. My father and Sarah beamed with pride, their eyes reflecting the immense joy and satisfaction of seeing me step into my purpose. Nana Lena, frail but radiant, was there, her hand clutching mine, her quiet strength a palpable presence. Aunt Clara and my cousins cheered from the stands, a chorus of love and support. It was a moment that encapsulated everything we had built, a testament to the power of a chosen family. As I walked across the stage, accepting my diploma, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, a deep awareness of the journey that had led me to this moment. After graduation, I immediately began working full-time at the nonprofit where I had interned, my passion for social work burning brighter than ever. I quickly moved from an entry-level position to a case manager, taking on more complex and challenging cases. My approach was always holistic, recognizing that individuals and families needed not just practical resources, but emotional and spiritual healing. I advocated fiercely for my clients, navigating bureaucratic hurdles and fighting for their rights, always remembering the vulnerability of those who had been left behind. My work was demanding, often heartbreaking, but also incredibly rewarding. I saw firsthand the transformative power of consistent support, of unwavering belief in someone's potential. I witnessed families rebuilding, children finding stability, and individuals discovering their own resilience. Each success, no matter how small, reaffirmed my purpose, reminding me that my own past, once a source of pain, had become a powerful tool for empathy and change. I often thought of my father's journey, his meticulous documentation, his quiet determination, and I channeled that same spirit into my own work. Ben, my partner, was an incredible source of support. He understood the emotional toll of my work, offering a listening ear, a comforting presence, and a steady hand. He celebrated my victories and helped me process the inevitable setbacks. Our relationship deepened, built on a foundation of shared values and a mutual commitment to making a positive impact on the world. We found joy in the simple things: cooking together, hiking in the Pacific Northwest, spending evenings reading or talking about our days. He was my calm in the storm, my anchor in a world that could often feel overwhelming. In 2040, 2 years after I graduated, Ben proposed. It was a quiet, intimate moment, just the two of us on a hike overlooking the Puget Sound, a place that held so much significance for my family. He didn't get down on one knee. Instead, he simply looked at me, his eyes full of love, and said, "Emma, I want to build a life with you, a life of purpose, of love, of showing up for each other, every single day. Will you marry me?" I said yes, my heart overflowing with joy, knowing that I had found a partner who truly saw me, who cherished me, and who was committed to building a future rooted in the same values that had defined my upbringing. Our wedding, a year later, was a beautiful, heartfelt celebration. My father walked me down the aisle, his hand firm and reassuring in mine, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and emotion. Sarah stood by my side, a radiant presence, her love a constant source of strength. Nana Lena, now in her late 80s, watched from the front row, a gentle smile on her face, her presence a living link to our family's history. It was a day filled with laughter, tears of joy, and the overwhelming sense of being surrounded by a community of love. As I looked out at the faces of our guests, I saw not just friends and relatives, but the embodiment of a chosen family. Each person there represented a thread in the rich tapestry of our lives, a testament to the power of connection, of showing up, of unwavering support. I thought of Alara, a fleeting thought, not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding. Her absence had, in a strange and profound way, created the space for all this beauty, for all this love. It was a powerful realization, a spiritual truth that resonated deep within my soul. Ben and I settled into our life together, building our own home, creating our own traditions. We continued our work, finding fulfillment in our respective fields, and always supporting each other's passions. We talked about starting our own family one day, about raising children with the same values of love, resilience, and compassion that had been instilled in me. I knew that if we were blessed with children, I would teach them the importance of showing up, of choosing love, and of building a family not just by blood, but by heart. My father, now in his early 50s, had found a profound sense of peace. He often reflected on his journey, marveling at how his life had unfolded, how the deepest pain had ultimately led to the greatest joy. He continued to be a mentor to me, a source of unwavering wisdom and encouragement. Sarah, his steadfast partner, remained his greatest confidant, their love a quiet, enduring force. They had built a legacy, not of material wealth, but of love, resilience, and the transformative power of a chosen family. The story of the girl left at a gas station had transformed into the story of a woman who had found her purpose, her love, and her unbreakable family. It was a testament to the idea that our past does not define us, but rather, it shapes us, strengthening our resolve and clarifying our path. The echoes of abandonment had faded, replaced by the vibrant symphony of a life lived fully, authentically, and with profound gratitude. And as I looked towards my own future, I carried with me the unwavering belief that love, in its purest form, is always a choice, a commitment, and the most powerful force for healing and transformation in the world. The years flowed onward, each one adding new layers to the rich tapestry of my life. My career in social work continued to flourish, my dedication to supporting vulnerable families earning me a reputation as a compassionate and effective advocate. I became a program director at the nonprofit, overseeing initiatives designed to empower single parents and provide comprehensive support for children navigating difficult family transitions. My personal story, shared with careful discretion, continued to be a powerful tool, fostering trust and connection with the families I served. They saw in me not just a professional, but a living testament to the possibility of overcoming adversity and building a beautiful life. Ben and I welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Lily, in 2043. Holding her in my arms for the first time, a tiny, perfect being, I felt an overwhelming surge of love, a primal connection that transcended words. It was a love so profound, so fierce, that it brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, I understood, on a deeper, more visceral level, the immense responsibility and boundless joy of parenthood. I looked at Lily's innocent face and made a silent vow to always show up for her, to always choose her, to always be her unwavering anchor in a world that could sometimes be unpredictable. My father and Sarah became doting grandparents, their faces lighting up with pure joy every time they saw Lily. Nana Lena, though no longer able to travel much, cherished video calls, her eyes sparkling as she watched her great-granddaughter babble and play. The circle of our chosen family expanded, each new life adding to the richness and depth of our connections. We celebrated Lily's milestones with immense joy, each first step, first word, and first birthday, a precious reminder of the love that surrounded her. I often found myself reflecting on Alara during these moments, not with anger or resentment, but with a quiet, almost spiritual understanding of the choices she had made. I saw the stark contrast between her path and the path my father had chosen, the profound difference between chasing fleeting fantasies and building enduring love. I realized that her abandonment, while painful, had ultimately been a catalyst for immense good, shaping my father into the incredible man he was, and creating the space for Sarah and Ben to enter our lives. It was a powerful lesson in the ripple effect of choices, how one person's actions, even those born of pain and self-interest, could inadvertently lead to unforeseen blessings for others. My work also led me to explore the broader systemic issues that contributed to family breakdown and child abandonment. I became a passionate advocate for policy changes, speaking at conferences, writing articles, and collaborating with other organizations to raise awareness and push for reforms. I believed that every child deserved a stable, loving home, and every parent deserved the support and resources to provide it. My voice, once quiet and hesitant, grew stronger, fueled by my personal history and my unwavering commitment to social justice. Ben, in his role as a teacher, also made a profound impact. He taught at a high school in a diverse, often underserved community, inspiring his students not just academically, but personally. He created a safe and inclusive classroom environment, fostering a sense of belonging and encouraging critical thinking. He often shared stories of his students' resilience, their determination to overcome challenges, and their dreams for a brighter future. We found immense joy in our shared purpose, our individual paths converging in a collective effort to make the world a more compassionate and equitable place. As Lily grew, I made a conscious effort to instill in her the same values of empathy, resilience, and the importance of showing up for others. We read stories about diverse families, talked about different kinds of love, and emphasized that family is defined by connection, not just by blood. I wanted her to understand that while life could be challenging, love was always the most powerful force, capable of healing wounds and building unbreakable bonds. I knew that one day I would share my full story with her, just as my father had shared his with me, trusting her to understand the complexities and embrace the lessons. The legacy of Alara's abandonment was not one of bitterness, but of profound transformation. It had forced my father to confront his deepest fears, to discover an inner strength he never knew he possessed. It had opened the door for Sarah, a woman whose love and wisdom had enriched our lives beyond measure, and it had shaped me, Emma, into a compassionate, resilient woman, dedicated to helping others find their own path to healing and purpose. It was a testament to the idea that even from the ashes of betrayal, something beautiful and enduring could rise. Our life was a vibrant symphony of love, purpose, and connection. We were a family, chosen and cherished, bound by threads stronger than blood. And as I looked at my daughter, Lily, playing in the sun-drenched yard, her laughter echoing through the air, I knew that the greatest victory wasn't just surviving the storm, but building a haven of love that would stand strong for generations to come. The past was a memory, a lesson learned, but the future, filled with hope and possibility, was ours to create, together. As Lily grew from a curious toddler into a spirited young girl, my reflections on my own journey deepened. I often found myself watching her, observing her boundless energy, an innocent joy, and a profound sense of gratitude would wash over me. She was growing up in a home filled with unwavering love, stability, and open communication, a stark contrast to the tumultuous beginnings of my own life. This was the legacy my father and Sarah had fought so hard to create, and it was a legacy I was committed to continuing. My work at the nonprofit continued to evolve. I launched a mentorship program specifically for children in single-parent households, pairing them with caring adults who could offer guidance, support, and a consistent presence. The program was incredibly successful, and I saw firsthand the transformative impact of these relationships. Children who had once felt isolated began to thrive, their confidence blossoming as they formed bonds with mentors who showed up for them, week after week. It was a living embodiment of the lessons my father had taught me, the power of presence, the importance of consistency, and the profound impact of chosen connections. Ben and I continued to build our life together, our partnership a source of unwavering strength. We celebrated our small victories, navigated our challenges with open communication, and always prioritized our family. Lily was the center of our world, and we delighted in watching her grow, learn, and explore. We took family vacations, created new traditions, and filled our home with laughter and love. Our relationship was a testament to the idea that true love is not about perfection, but about commitment, empathy, and the willingness to grow together. My father, now enjoying a well-deserved semi-retirement, found new passions. He volunteered his logistics expertise to local charities, helping them streamline their operations and maximize their impact. He spent more time with Nana Lena, ensuring her comfort and companionship in her golden years, and he became the most incredible papa to Lily, sharing stories, teaching her how to fix things, and imparting his quiet wisdom. His journey, from broken man to resilient father to cherished grandfather, was a constant source of inspiration, a living testament to the human capacity for transformation. Sarah, still thriving in her career, also embraced her role as Grandma Sarah. She taught Lily about coding and science, fostering her curiosity, and encouraging her to explore the world with an open mind. Her love for Lily was boundless, a beautiful reflection of the love she had so generously extended to me all those years ago. Our family, once defined by a painful absence, was now overflowing with presence, with connection, with a rich tapestry of interwoven lives. I often thought about the concept of rock bottom and how my father had transformed his into a foundation. It wasn't a one-time event, but a continuous process of choosing to build, choosing to show up, choosing to love. This wisdom became a guiding principle in my own life and in my work. I taught my clients that even in their darkest moments, they held the power to choose their path forward, to find strength in their struggles, and to build something beautiful from the ruins of their past. The story of Alara, once a source of deep personal pain for my father, had evolved into a powerful narrative of redemption, not for her, but for the lives she had inadvertently shaped. Her choices, though born of her own brokenness, had ultimately cleared the path for a family far stronger, far more loving, and far more resilient than the one she had abandoned. It was a profound paradox, a testament to the intricate workings of fate and the enduring power of the human spirit. As Lily approached her 10th birthday, I knew the time was drawing near to share my full story with her. I wanted her to understand her origins, not as a source of shame or confusion, but as a testament to the incredible love that had brought her into existence. I wanted her to know the strength of her grandfather, the unwavering love of her Grandma Sarah, and the profound resilience that ran in our family. It would be a conversation handled with care, with honesty, and with the same open heart that had guided my own upbringing. The journey from that gas station, from the moment of abandonment, had been long and arduous, but it had led to a life far richer, far more meaningful than anyone could have imagined. It was a life built on the foundation of chosen love, unwavering commitment, and the profound understanding that true family is not about blood, but about the people who show up, day after day, through thick and thin. And in that understanding, there was not just peace, but a deep, abiding joy, a celebration of the beautiful, messy, and utterly miraculous tapestry of life. The day I chose to share my full story with Lily was a crisp autumn afternoon, much like the one when my father first told me about Alara. Lily was almost 10, a bright, inquisitive girl with a keen sense of justice and an even keener heart. We were sitting on the porch swing, the same one where my father had given me Alara's journal years ago, the leaves rustling around us in a gentle symphony. I had prepared for this moment for a long time, carefully choosing my words, wanting to convey the truth with honesty, empathy, and without any lingering bitterness. "Lily, sweetheart," I began, my voice soft. "Mommy and Daddy have always told you that families come in all shapes and sizes, right? And that what matters most is love and showing up for each other." She nodded, her eyes wide and attentive, sensing the seriousness of the conversation. "Well, there's a part of our family story that I want to share with you today, something that's been a big part of who I am and who your Grandpa Alex is." I took a deep breath and began to tell her, not just the facts, but the emotional journey, the struggles, the triumphs, and the profound lessons learned. I told her about my birth mother, Alara, and the difficult choices she made when I was a baby. I explained the concept of abandonment, not as a judgment, but as a painful reality. I spoke of my father's unwavering love, his struggle, his resilience, and how he had built a new life for us from nothing. I told her about Grandma Sarah, who chose to love me as her own, and about the legal battles that ultimately secured my future. I even touched upon Alara's later struggles, her mental health challenges, and her eventual passing, emphasizing the complexity of human lives and choices. Lily listened intently, her small face a canvas of emotions, surprise, sadness, and a growing understanding. She asked questions, thoughtful and direct, much like I had as a child. "Why did she leave you, Mommy?" she asked, her voice tinged with a child's innocent confusion. "Because she was hurting inside, Lily," I explained gently. "And sometimes, when people are hurting very deeply, they make choices that hurt others, even people they love. She was chasing a different kind of happiness, one that wasn't real, and she lost her way." "But you found your way, Mommy," Lily said, her eyes fixed on mine. "And Grandpa Alex found his way, and Grandma Sarah found her way to you." "Yes, sweetheart," I said, my heart swelling with love. "We did, and that's the most important part of the story. It's a story about how even when things are very, very hard, love can always find a way to grow. It's about how the people who truly love you will always show up, no matter what." I then told her about Alara's final letter, about her apology, and how it had brought a sense of peace and closure. I explained that while Alara had been my birth mother, the true mothers in my life were Sarah and me, who chose to love and nurture her every single day. Lily wrapped her arms around me, a fierce, comforting hug. "I'm glad you have Grandpa Alex and Grandma Sarah, Mommy," she whispered. "And I'm glad I have you and Daddy." In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. I had shared my truth, and she had embraced it, not with fear or confusion, but with a profound understanding of love's enduring power. The cycle of silence and unspoken pain was broken. In its place, a legacy of honesty and resilience would continue. My father and Sarah were immensely proud of how I handled the conversation. "You gave her the truth, Emma," my father said, his eyes warm, "and you did it with so much grace and love. You've truly become the woman I always knew you would be." Sarah simply hugged me, her embrace a silent testament to our shared journey. This moment, this act of sharing, solidified my belief in the power of narrative, the importance of owning one's story, and the healing that comes from speaking one's truth. As Lily grew, she carried this understanding with her, a quiet wisdom that shaped her own interactions and her view of the world. She became a compassionate friend, a fierce advocate for fairness, and a young woman who understood that true strength came not from avoiding pain, but from facing it with courage and an open heart. She knew that her family was built on a foundation of chosen love, a love that had triumphed over abandonment and betrayal, creating a haven of unwavering support. The story of my mother leaving me at a gas station with my baby, and the subsequent freezing moment 5 years later when she saw who was behind me, had transformed into a narrative of profound spiritual growth. It was a story not of revenge, but of redemption. Not for Alara, but for the lives she had inadvertently set free. It was a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our deepest wounds, forcing us to discover strengths we never knew we possessed, and to build a life far more beautiful and authentic than we could have ever imagined. The past was a whisper, the present a vibrant song, and the future, filled with the promise of continued love and purpose, stretched out before us, bright and boundless. Years continued to unfold, each one a testament to the enduring strength of our chosen family. Lily grew into a remarkable young woman, embodying the very best of the values instilled in her. She pursued her own passions, excelled in her studies, and approached the world with a compassionate heart and an unwavering sense of purpose. Her understanding of our family's unique history gave her a depth of empathy that was truly inspiring, and she often spoke about the importance of resilience and the power of love in overcoming life's challenges. My work as a program director expanded, and I found myself increasingly involved in national initiatives aimed at supporting vulnerable children and families. I traveled, spoke at conferences, and collaborated with policymakers, always carrying the weight of my own story as a driving force. I believed that every child deserved a chance, every parent deserved support, and every family, regardless of its structure, deserved to be built on a foundation of love and respect. My voice, once a quiet whisper of personal experience, had become a resonant call for change, a beacon of hope for countless others. Ben and I continued to nurture our relationship, our love deepening with each passing year. We celebrated our anniversaries, navigated the joys and challenges of parenthood, and always found time for each other, recognizing that our partnership was the bedrock of our family. We watched Lily embark on her own journey into adulthood, offering guidance and support, but always encouraging her to forge her own path, to make her own choices, and to build a life that was authentically hers. My father and Sarah, now in their golden years, enjoyed a peaceful and fulfilling retirement. They spent their days pursuing hobbies, traveling, and most importantly, cherishing their time with Lily and our growing family. Their love story, born from the ashes of betrayal and built on unwavering commitment, remained a powerful inspiration, a living testament to the idea that true love can heal all wounds and create a future far brighter than the past. Nana Lena had passed away peacefully a few years prior, her memory a cherished blessing, her quiet strength an enduring presence in our hearts. The story of Alara, my birth mother, had truly faded into the background, a historical fact rather than an emotional burden. Her choices, once a source of pain and confusion, had become a profound lesson in the power of personal agency. I understood that while her life had been marked by struggle and unfulfilled desires, her story was ultimately hers alone. My story, however, was one of triumph, of resilience, of the incredible power of a chosen family. It was a narrative of how, from the deepest depths of abandonment, a life of profound love, purpose, and joy could emerge. I often reflected on the title of this story. My mother left me at a gas station with my baby. 5 years later, she froze when she saw who was behind me. The baby in the title was me, Emma, and the who was behind me was not a person seeking revenge, but the powerful, unyielding force of the family my father had built. It was the strength of his love, the unwavering presence of Sarah, and the undeniable truth of a life forged in resilience. Alara had frozen not out of fear of retribution, but out of the stark realization of what she had truly lost, and what my father had gained. The greatest victory, I realized, was not in Alara's downfall, but in our rise. It was in the laughter that filled our home, the quiet moments of connection, the shared dreams, and the unwavering belief in each other. It was in the knowledge that love is a choice, a daily commitment, and the most powerful force for healing and transformation in the world. The people who abandon you do not define your worth. The people who stay, who choose you when it's hard, who love you when it's inconvenient, who show up when it's unglamorous, those are the people who reveal your true value. And if you are very lucky, you become one of those people too, extending that same love and commitment to others. This story, my friends, is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. It's a reminder that even from the most painful beginnings, a life of profound purpose and boundless love can emerge. It's a celebration of chosen family, of resilience, and of the unwavering belief that every day is an opportunity to build something beautiful, something real, something that truly matters.